So this is the sign I made for a friend at their request this week. And after designing it, I gave this away to my patrons as well. I just thought it was neat. Now, there's nothing about this sign that's truly unique because the words are actually from what is it, a meme they sent me in Facebook. And they said, hey, man, I think this applies to you and me both. So I actually just took the words off of a meme and put it on a little sign and then put the corner accents on it. And that's actually like a little divider, but I put it on the bottom accent. I said, hey, that's pretty cool. I like that. So I gave it to my patrons. I gave it to all of them. And I said, you know what? And I went online and I looked for some scrollwork corner pieces. And I found a few. But even with tracing them and even using the optimize shapes tool that I showed in this past week, couldn't really get a good, clean corner piece. I said, well, I'm going to design some. I'm going to make some. And so those little corner pieces here, you know, I actually sit down and design those in LightBurn. Same thing with the bottom piece there. That way they were crisp, clean, and I'm going to show you how to do that tonight. And then also I've had a few email, wrong way, Conway, that way, there we go. A few people who've reached out with questions and emails, and I'm going to address those. We got a lot to go over tonight. So hey to everybody that's here. We got 66 of us. Need 3 more people here to be 69. Baby, I'm a 69er. I was born in 1969. That's the number of my car and my favorite number. So we need 3. Oh, well, somebody just dropped off because I said I wanted 69. Well, shame on them. All right, so we need a few more people. But thank you for all the regulars that are here. Thank you for showing up. I want to talk about the scroll work, the corner pieces. I'm going to actually design a couple of them in real time, and then the divider line. And guys, you design these things one time and you save them in your art library, and you can use them over and over and over again. They are the difference. I mean, imagine this sign without the corner accents and without it just looked very, very blank. It's those little accents that really add some pizzazz to it and make it a whole lot more sellable if you're going to make these and sell them in your craft shows. All right. So in addition to that, I had I got a confession to make, and I want to share what I've done this week. I took yesterday off. Been a long time since I took a day off, but I desperately needed it. My batteries were running on reserve, not even empty. They just pitiful. I took the day off yesterday, and I went to see a movie. I went to go see the remake of Twisters, and that's a pretty good movie. I like the original one because it had the flying cow in it. I didn't see any flying cows in this one, but it was a good movie nonetheless. But I went to a movie theater that was showing it in 4DX. You ever heard of a movie theater with 4DX? I hadn't and didn't know that's what it was called anyway. But some of the theme parks, like we've got Carowinds down here, and they used to have a NASCAR ride there where you go in and sit down in these chairs, and then they'd show you a 5-minute or 3-minute video of NASCARs running around the track, and you'd get in that chair and they'd fire up the cars on the screen, and then you'd feel the rumble and the vibration in the seat. Then the cars take off down the track, and then it'd lean in the corner and then lean in the corner. That's what this movie was like in 4DX, but it's 4D. In addition to the moving seats for the entire 2-hour movie, there was rain blowing in your face, wind blowing everywhere, because this was a tornado. It was, and whenever the trucks go flying through the cornfields chasing the tornadoes, you're getting bounced around in every different direction and violently. I mean, if you've got bad backs, you don't want to go do this. But if you're young and healthy, go for it. I was afraid there one time. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get whiplash in this. But it was an incredible experience, and it was a much needed day off yesterday. So for everybody who sent me emails and needed help and I hadn't get back to you, I goofed off, and I'm sorry. I goofed off. But Santa has emailed me about some requests or some help with a design with a lantern. We're going to look at that later. Some butterflies and daisies or butterflies and flowers for a lantern design. And then also there was an email just before going live about putting names in Christmas balls. So we're going to look at that too. But first, we're going to go look at doing some of these corner accent pieces and that divider. The dividers are pretty cool because you can use them if you had if you were going to assign with or even songs with multiple choruses or phrases, or you break them up in paragraphs, so you can add some pop to a multi-textual a lot of text with the dividers in them plus the corners. Just it looks better than just a whole bunch of words on a blank piece of board. So let's jump over to LightBurn, and we're going to design the first corner piece. All right. So this is so simple. So simple. I'm going to start with a pencil tool, and I'm going to draw a straight line, and then I'm going to tell it to be, let's select it, and I'm going to go with 30 millimeters. And I'm going to put my anchor point in the bottom left, and I'm going to say Control D, duplicate it, and then I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And that put it down like that, made a right angle. Select this one, hit Alt J to join. Now I'm going to go through this pretty darn quick the first time, because I'm going to show you how easy this is to do. All right, so we've got a 30 millimeter line. I duplicated it, changed my anchor point to the bottom left, rotated it 90 degrees, and then hit Alt J to join those together. Now I'm going to say Control D, duplicate it again, hold my control button, and just shrink this down to what looks good. And I say, okay, well, that looks pretty good right there. And now I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to draw a circle, and I'm going to hold Control and Shift right here on the corner and draw out a perfect circle. And I'm going to make it come into contact with that corner right there. Select that. And now, since I told this line here to be 30 millimeters long, I'm going to come in here to my settings, and I'm going to go to half of that and say 15 millimeters is my arrow movement. And I'm going to just arrow over one time, 15 millimeters. That's going to put it right in the middle of that line. Duplicate it, arrow it back and back up. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my ruler to measure from here to here, and it's 4.9 millimeters. So now I'm going to change my movement to half of that. So 4.45, and say okay. And now I'm going to move that over. No, not. What did I do? I did math wrong. 4.9. No, that's right. I want to go half of that. Half. Cancel. Go 2.2. Sorry. There we go. And come up. There we go. And that kind of puts that in the middle of those two lines. And now I will simply select everything, do an offset, and I'm going to go both, or no, actually I don't want to do them. I don't want to do all of it. I only want to do my line, get both of them. Lines first, offset, and do outward 0.5. That'll give me a 1 millimeter total, and do corners. That keeps those flat, and say okay. Now I'll take these two and do an inward and do 1, so they're equal. And don't delete the original, say okay. Now group, let's see, group all that together. Group all of that together. They already are. So hold my shift button and select that and group those. And there's a pretty simple looking little corner accent. It's kind of neat looking. And if you wanted to change those up, if you didn't want those to have the flat tops on them, you could have left it with a rounded end instead of the flat edge, or you can ungroup it all and now go to your node editing and hit the letter M for middle, and down here, M for middle, hold my shift button, select that one and change my movement to 1 millimeter and arrow up. Come down here, the letter M for middle, select that one and arrow over. And now I got nice little points on there. So that's kind of neat, kind of unique. I could now copy or select that entire thing and then go into my art library and then save this to my art library for corner accents or whatever I wanted to name it, and have that there ready anytime I wanted to use it. So that's how quick you can make a corner piece. And that one's a kind of simple one. We'll look here. So I see first question, which has, I get my Baltic birch from Amazon, and I use the following link right now. Let's see here. It's https hobo with wood.com/premium Baltic birch. And I didn't spell Baltic right. Spell that correctly. There we go. Baltic birch. All right, so there's a link to that. That's where I get my premium Baltic birch from. It's in the comments, the link. Now, I will tell you, this is premium stuff. It's, I think, A grade or double A grade. And in 2 years, I've had one box that came in kind of warped from humidity, and that was environmental issues. Contacted the shipper or the seller, and he was actually made it good. But I got my second box that I'm having some issues with that I've got now. In fact, I can show you here. See that top edge, how it's burnt all the way down through there? I thought I was having some laser issues or some focus issues with my laser, because it was doing some really crazy things when I was trying to cut it out. Normally, I can cut this 3 millimeter Baltic birch with one pass at 390 millimeters a second, or two passes at 480. But this was getting all this burn on it. So in order to cut this cleanly and to minimize the amount of burn on that laminate on the very top, I've been having to do 6 or 8 passes at a very, very high speed. So folks, whenever you're looking at your results, you're like, oh, something's wrong with my laser. Well, don't throw the laser out yet, because it's, those irregularities or those problems are not always laser related. Turns out it is material, because I switched lasers, tried different, and I was having the same results with the cuts. The only thing that was in common was the wood, and changing the amount of passes and the speed minimized that. But I had to do something I didn't normally do because of this material. Try that link again. It doesn't work. All right. HTTPS Hobo with wood. I probably didn't put the .com. Yeah, I did. .com/premium Baltic birch. And speaking of that, thank you to everybody who went on and bought their stuff on Prime Day using my links. Because Prime Day, I got a whopping $94 off of the purchase you guys made using my links. So woo! That paid for my trip to the theater. All right. Kathy says, is there an easy way to clean up the art library? I've added many items that really need a category. All right. Yeah. And this is crucial, guys. Organization, if you want to find something, is crucial. If it's not organized, you can, and you know you got it, but you don't know where it's at. What good does it do you? So if you've got a whole, like, in fact, let's jump over here. And I don't want to get derailed. I don't want to get down a whole lot of squirrels, but in my art library, I have this right here. This is a folder called WIP, which is short for work in progress. And anytime I'm working on something and I don't have a folder for it or a designated area, or I'm not done with the file, but I've got to change, I will copy this and then save it into my WIP folder. But when I'm ready to actually organize it and clean it up, then I will create a new library. You bring all those over onto the screen, create a new library, and bring those back into that individually labeled and all. I don't want to go down that path right now with this video because there's a lot more I want to do tonight. But if you were, let's say, let's get rid of this one. Actually, I'm not. I'm going to save this one. I'm going to create a new library. And it's important that you have this set up. Right now, this is not where I want this to go. I've got all of my art library in LightBurn and library, and I want to give it a file name, and this is going to be corner accents. And there, it just populated that folder in my art library right here. So now that's open. So I can select this and import graphic from project. And I'm just going to put these in here by number 1 and say, okay. So now that is put that into that corner accent piece or in that folder. And so now if I delete that and I create a sign and now I'm ready to use that. So, okay, now all I got to do is just double click it. Now to bring that in, I don't have to create it. It's already there. But let's go down here to this work in progress. Or actually, you know what? I think I've got some, let's see. Corner. Well, there we go. I already had one, corners. Let's double. In fact, here's a chance. I've got one. I just now created corner accents, and I already had one that was called corners. I'm going to bring those that were in there from corners over onto the work page, take them into the other, and then delete that other one and clean that up. And I honestly don't need 2 of these in here because actually I do. I'm sorry. These are actually 2 different designs. And these I did with squares instead of with circles. And since these are different, I'm going to select this one, bring it over here, bring this one, rotate it. And I'm going to say select that. And I'm going to come back here to corner accents, import graphic from project. And I'm going to call it number 2 and say okay. And so that gives me that one. Select this one, import it, number 3, say okay. Now I've got 3 of those in there. I'm going to get rid of all of that, delete that. And this one right here, I don't need it anymore. So I'm going to unload it. And now it's no longer shown right here. But if I go into my file organization and go look at where I had that at, LightBurn and in libraries, not there. Yeah, I put that in the wrong place a minute ago. I didn't want to go in there, which I can move that. So I'm going to select corner accent. In fact, there's another one. Got 2 of these in the wrong place. Go back up. See, y'all getting me? I'll see libraries, jobs, art. I wanted to put that in art, not in library. Duh. So I'm going to and I don't like these new ones. Used to have move. I'm going to cut. Nope, don't even have cut. Share, rename. Don't know. Copy. art. Well, I don't like this new layout. Paste. Okay, that put that in there. Corners. There we go. So I put that in the wrong spot to begin with. So now I can delete that one. Copy this one. Go ahead and delete that one. And go back up to art and paste that in here. Well, cancel. Anyway, there we go. I screwed up. I ain't gonna worry about that right now because I got off onto a tangent. Okay, so now that was one quick corner. And let's go back over here to LightBurn. And we're going to do one more, but I'm going to do it slower this time. And so you understand what I was doing and why the math I used to do what I did. If I draw a straight line and I tell it to be right at 30 millimeters in length, so it's going to be a little over an inch. And this goes back to when you're designing something, you really want to design it at its smallest possible use or most likely used design, because you always scale up, it's going to be fine. But if you make it really big and you try to scale it down, then it doesn't always work so well. 1 inch might even be a little bit big. So think about this when you're going to be doing these. If you're making signs this size, this is 295 millimeters across. It's right at 12 inches. Then a 1 inch corner looks pretty good. But if you're only going to be doing 4x3 little signs that you're going to be selling, then a 1 inch corner is going to be too big. So you would make design it as small as you would possibly use it. And let's go back here. So I'm going to tell it to be 30 millimeters. I've got my anchor point in the bottom corner, and I'm going to say Control D to duplicate that line. And now I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And with that anchor point in the bottom corner, it will rotate it flat over and make that a 90-degree angle. Now, if you hold your shift button and select that, you still got two separate pieces and you can see how the ants are running towards each other. If you hit Alt J for join. See how this line just changed directions, and now all the ants are running with each other. They're running together, or running in a line. So that gave you one object instead of two separate lines. Now, if you don't, right now we're back to our original line. If you leave your anchor point in the center and you say Control D and you rotate it 90 degrees, you get your plus mark instead of a corner piece. That's why you have to move your anchor point. And there is hardly any mention of those six, blah, 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 those 9 circles in the LightBurn documentation at all. They don't even have a name for it in LightBurn. And once I figured out what they did and how they work, I said, hey, man, and having lived on a boat, I lived on a boat for 7 years and thought that was the greatest thing until I got sick and tired of being landlocked because I was in a big lake. But when you're in a boat, you drop anchor, that anchor ain't moving. Everything's going to pivot around that anchor. The wind's going to move your boat. It's going to move whatever. The current's going to move it, but you're going to pivot around that anchor. Well, that's what those dots do. They serve as an anchor. When you drop that anchor there, then your design is going to move wherever you tell it to from that anchor point. And I said, anchor points. And when I was with the other channel, they're like, hey, man, that's a good name. And so now others have adopted it and everybody's calling it anchor point. Well, that's thanks to old Hobo here. He goes, that's how my mind works. What do they do? Well, they serve as an anchor. All right. So back to that. So now I have a duplicate. I'm going to drop my anchor in the bottom left, and I'm going to tell it to rotate it 90 degrees. Now that boat just got blown around over here. Hold my shift button and Alt-J joined them together. Now I've got one piece. Control-D to duplicate that piece. Holding the control button, I'm just going to shrink this down until where it looks good. And however much space you want it to be in there. The more space you got in there, the more room you've got to do with other things. And by doing your control, you're shrinking it down symmetrically. So that's going to keep from this point to this point at a 45-degree angle if you were to draw a straight line from there to there. And that's what, makes that look good. So, bring that down holding your control button. And a minute ago, I used circles. This time I want to use squares. So I'm going to hold my shift button and I'm going to come. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'll do a square that's exactly the distance of these two. So I'm going to come here to this corner, get that bullseye, hold my shift button, and draw out a square till I get to that corner and get the bullseye. And now that I got that, I can do actually, that's not going to be big enough if I want to have it overlapping. So forget that. I'm going to bring it on out to about there. And actually, I've got another idea too. All right. So let's do that again. We're going to draw another square from there to there, holding shift. And now I'm going to bring that one. In fact, I told this line to be 30 millimeters for the biggest one. So if I take and hold the shift button and tell that to align center, then it's going to go there. That's going to be right in the middle of that line. Or if you grab that centerpiece, grab it right in the center of that square, and you start moving it from there, and you come up here to that line, you can come down and scroll in there. Right there, when you get that circle with your cursor, that's dead center. What is the distance between those two? Oh, new ruler. And if I go from here, holding my shift button, it'll draw a straight line to my next one. And that says that's 5.46 millimeters. So 5.5. So 2 1/4 would be about halfway. So 1.25. 1.25 millimeters is my arrow movement. And so if I go up, oh, y'all figured out yet? Math ain't always my strong suit. But in here, and if you don't, and a lot of times I don't even try to do the math because it's not always my strong suit. And I know what I want it to be visually. So without even having to think about what the math is, I'll create toolpaths to get the desired result that I was looking for. Such as, I know that let's go back to, let's see, select my toolpath, go back to the square. And if I come here where I just created that and draw out another one, then that's perfectly centered. And center those up. So now it's centered and centered. And I'm going to rotate it using my less than key, holding my shift button, and that will rotate it only 45 degrees like that. Now, period, comma, which is your period, comma keys are also your less than and greater than buttons. And if you look at your, go ahead and do this. Look down, look at your keyboard. Your keyboard, your period and comma keys, greater than and less than. Well, think of those as arrows. That's the direction that your piece is going to rotate. So if I select that square right there and I use the less than or comma key, it's going to rotate it 90 degrees. Well, it did that like this. There's 45, there's 90, but you didn't see 90 because it's a square. But if you hold shift while you do, it's going to do it 45 degrees. So greater than or less than will rotate 90, holding shift, and greater than or less than, it'll rotate at 45. All right, so I'm going to rotate that back to there. And I'm going to duplicate that, Control D, duplicate it. And now I'm going to bring this over here. There's that. And then I'm going to select that and tell it to line center. And now that's centered up. So, okay. And I'm going to shrink this one down just a little bit to there. And I'm going to get rid of my toolpath. Now I'm going to select, you know what? Actually not. I'm going to select just the two lines and do an offset of 1.5. No, this is, and here we're doing an offset of a line, and it's going to go out in both directions. So if you want it to be 1.5 millimeters, then you need to do half of that because it's going to go out equal distance on each line. So half of 1.5, 0.7 or 0.65, 0.6, whatever. So think about that when you're doing your offset. So I'm going to do 0.7, and that'll give me around 1.4, 0.75. So, okay, and delete the original. What did it just do? Undo. I don't know what I just did. Select both of those. Oh, you know what? Because I didn't tell it to do outward, dummy. 0.75, delete the original. And in this case, because I'm doing the corners, I'm definitely going to use a corner mode and delete the originals. And here, I'm looking now that I've got my offset. These aren't protruding very far. So I'm going to select both of these and go ahead and do an outward offset of the same amount and delete the originals. I didn't delete. I turned off delete the original. Stupid. So delete and delete. So that looks better. Now what I'll do is select all three of these, group them, and do an offset. And because this is only going in one direction, got to double that to 1.5. There we go. And don't delete. That's good. And now group. Let's see. Actually, I'm going to leave the inners grouped, the outers. That's one piece. Those are grouped. All right. And now if I weld those, that gives me that. That's okay. You know what would look, if that might would have looked better if those were stretched out. But that's okay. And I'm going to leave that like that and put it in the black mode and in a fill mode and see what it looks like. Those might look better if they were spaced out a little bit further away from the end. But that don't look terrible. Put that back in line mode. Go back into select just that piece. And because these are points, I am going to ungroup all of this and come in here and do middle, 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 middle. Change my movement to 1 millimeter. Say okay. And select both of those middle points and left arrow over 1 millimeter. Come up here and grab both of these middle points and up arrow 1 millimeter. And group all that back together. And now that doesn't look terrible. I would redesign that and move these on up a little bit so these are actually separate from that bottom corner. But I'm going to go ahead and go back to my corner accents and corner accents, import, or. And it looks like I screwed up. Whenever I screwed up my other library a minute ago, I messed all that up. That's okay. I fix all that. So those are the corner pieces. And it's not real hard. And as easy as this is to do, you play with it, you don't like it. My favorite button in the entire LightBurn software, undo or Control Z. If you don't like it, just undo. You undo back to a point and you like it and start, move it out, and change them up until you get the result you're looking for. So those are corner pieces. Let's see here. I'm looking for. In fact, I didn't put any. Okay, there we go. I seen that. All right, good. I'm seeing a lot of numbers here. And if you're first-time viewers and you like what you're seeing so far, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I got that running across the bottom of the screen right there. Like, share, and subscribe if you like what you're seeing right now. Help me keep this channel going and growing. And if you're our first-time viewer and you see all these numbers that are populating in the comments, that's when somebody is watching and they're really absorbing what's going on. They just learned something new. Well, then, like Tom, he's put in number 4. That means he just learned. He's already learned 4 things in this video. Just watching this, he's already learned 4 new things. I love seeing this. 5. So, and this is to help the analytics in LightBurn populate this and lets other people in LightBurn know that this is a popular video. The more people comment, the more it helps me out. So that's what those are for. People were watching and learning and falling asleep. So I was like, hey guys, instead of not falling asleep, I thought they were falling asleep because they were so into what was going on. I said, you know what? Start dropping some numbers. That just lets me know you're here and you're watching. So that's what the numbers are for. So if you're new to the channel, like, share, and subscribe. If you're learning anything and you don't really want to join in on conversations, hey, if you learn something, put down a 1. If you learn something new, put down a 2. Keep it up, keep it going. And Chris asked, have you been learning math from Clack? Sometimes this noggin works pretty good, and sometimes it don't. And for me, it's about what looks good, what's visually it looks nice. So sometimes I'll do the math, and sometimes I'll just use toolpaths to put the stuff where I want it to go. But yeah, I know he says he hates math too. Let's see here. And Kevin says good info on the greater than, or that's less than and greater than. And like I said, look at those like arrows. That will help you remember, because you got your arrows, your movement arrows, and those, don't confuse those with your greater than or less than. Greater than and less than are just to rotate an object. And I really love that. Tom's now up to 7. Awesome. Moses, thank you, my brother. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. And let's see here. Does the move screen add speed or power? See, does the move screen add speed or power work live while burning? Not quite sure I follow you, Marshall. Can you, while the laser is burning, can you affect your speed and power while the laser is running? Not while it's running, you can't. But I did see, and I've never changed it, but I have. Seems like I've seen someone do a demonstration where they paused a job, not stopped it, but paused it, and then changed the speed settings and then restarted it. And that did actually do something. But I haven't done it myself. But there is a way to do that. And if enough of you are interested in how that works, I can research it and figure it out. But I've never had a need to do that. But there is a way you can do it. But it doesn't do it automatically. Not while it's live. You have to stop it. You have to not stop it, pause it. I think that's the trick. What is the difference between shift and control? Depends on what you're trying to do, Scott. Control if you like, whenever you're doing, if you're going to select multiple shapes, let's go over here and let's just draw out. In fact, I'm going to do a shape, and I'm going to, right now that is a polygon with 6 sides. I'm going to go to my shape properties and give it 5 sides, so you can see that it's rotating when I rotate it. Right now, if I draw out another object, a circle, if I've got both on here and I want to select both of them, then I'm going to hold my shift button, and because the circle is already selected, hold shift, and now I can select the pentagon, and now they're both selected. Now, if I hold shift and start drawing out, see how they're both there. I'm not holding any button. They're just being stretched out. But if I hold shift, it'll allow me to move them both, but I can now shrink them and squeeze them, whatever. But if I hold control, it keeps them locked together. That's one way that, but also if you're going to, the order in which you select the two. If I was wanting to use Boolean tools, you have to use your shift button to select one and then the other. So if I select the pentagon and I move it up here, overlapping the circle, and hold holding shift and then pick the circle, and I use a control B. We'll look at all of the functions there. If we do union, that puts them together. But there, that gives you that. But the order in which you select them, and this right here is the best example, is A versus A subtract B. If I select the pentagon first, that's A, and then hold shift and select the circle as B, and then look at A subtract B, this one, it gives you that result. So that's A subtract B, and it's a part of the pentagon missing. Cancel. If I select A, the circle first, and then B, and do control B, and do the same A subtract B, I get partial circle. So the difference between shift and control is how they can shrink. Does it keep them locked and keep the perspective, or allow you to do shrinking differently? And if you're doing an individual piece, just the circle, if I'm holding shift and do it out, it's going to stretch. That's not shift, that's control. There, go back. Hold shift. It's only going to bring out that one side. The other side is locked in place. Undo. Now holding control, it will stretch out the opposite side with it, the same distance. Come down here, hold control. Now it stretches out top and bottom. If I hold shift, it's only going to stretch out the bottom. And up here at the corner, holding shift, it's only going to stretch that one corner. If I hold control, it stretches out both corners. So shift and control can do a bunch of different things. So it depends on what you're trying to do. Are you trying to stretch your product or your image? Or you're looking to do the Boolean tools? And what result you're looking for. So there's a lot of things that shift and control do. It just depends on what you're trying to do when you're using shift and control. Looking for questions. Question. Oh, and Dave here's got a QQ for question. I see those, but what I ask folks to do, if you have a question, you're not just commenting in the stream, put down 3 question marks or more. Question marks, question mark, because with all the comments in there, and I love seeing the comments, that lets YouTube know that you're there. But the question marks are what I'm looking for. The Q's I see, but the question marks jump out at me. I don't always see the questions. But Dave's asked, What about a lighthouse with a living hinge body with a taper base? Whole new topic, and I have done some tapers with living hinges. I did do the lighthouse, or not a lighthouse. I did the silo with a non-tapered base. It was perfectly round. Whole different subject matter that I'm not going to go into. I don't want to, because I want to go over a lot tonight, but I don't. But this would take us way down another whole nother rabbit hole. The trick to it is when you're doing your living hinge, the idea is to, you've got equal space between all of your cuts so that it folds up, right? Well, if you're wanting to have it flared at the bottom, well, then those spaces have got to get wider, greater distance between the lower cuts. And to do the living hinge, I did do a tapered living hinge on my silo. In fact, I'll bring that file up real quick just to show you that. We'll delete this and let's see, file open, desktop, e-commerce, silo. All right, so if I grab, hopefully this is grouped. Yeah, all right. If I grab just the top of the silo. In order for this to fold up, I've actually got a living hinge here on the top half and then a living hinge down here on the bottom half. Those are two different living hinges in order for it to fold up in a conical shape. And I've got this cut out so that it actually folds up and comes to a point, and it's a raised piece like the top of a silo. So I'm missing 75% of the material, but I've got two living hinges on here to create and allow it to fold up like that in a an asymmetrical shape. So that's the key to doing a tapered base, is having an asymmetrical, or you want to be asymmetrical, not just a perfect cone. Yeah, really two or more living hinges with varying spaces between your cuts. And let's see here. Oh, okay. So Scott, he's asking what's the difference between shift and control when rotating an object? 45%. So if I have a square and it's selected and I do the less than key, that just rotated 90 degrees, but you can't tell it because it's a perfect square. And when you rotate it 90 degrees, it's still in that same position. But if you hold shift, it will rotate it 45 degrees. It'll rotate it half the distance. So if this was, in fact, I can't do it there. We'll go back to polygon and we'll give it 3 sides. So now holding shift and less than with that object selected, it rotates it just 45. Holding control will rotate it 90, which I think control I think is the default. But shift will allow it to rotate just half of it, or 45 degrees. Now in rotating, let's see here. Go back here, delete that. And I know you're not seeing my screen right now because I don't want you to. There, and change. Yeah. Let's do this because I need to test this. Test my theory. There we go. And now rotate. Come on. No. All right. Scratch that. So that's the difference, Scott, between holding shift, and you don't need to hold control with the greater than or less than, because of the arrow key or the greater than. Take that back. And I'm glad I just did this. We'll switch this back. I drew this pentagon and I stretched the top of it out. There is a difference. If you hit the less than key without holding control or shift, it rotates at 90 degrees. That was less than. There's greater than, less than, 90 degrees. Holding shift and less than, it rotates at 45 degrees. Greater than, I'll put it back. That's 45 degrees. Put it back. Now holding control and rotating it with the less than, it moves at 22.5 degrees. There's 45. There's that plus 22.5 plus, or less than that even, because there's 90. So how many degrees is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. Somebody do math. I don't know. That was 6 times holding control button to get it to move 90 degrees. So 15 degrees, I think. 15, 30, 45. Yeah, 15 degrees. Holding control, there's upright. Holding control is 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90. So, Scott, the difference between holding shift and control is how many degrees of rotation you get. Holding nothing rotates 90. Holding shift rotates 45. Holding control rotates 15. And I still need to get back to the designing dividers and all that, because I want you to see how that's done. Thank you, Brad. Greatly appreciated. Wow. Tom's all the way up to number 8. Yeah, and Ed, that's what I just did the math for come up 22, but I believe it's just 15 degrees. Is it not? Because we just count that out. It's 15 degrees. Did I do the math wrong again? Yeah. Andy says 15. Chris, yeah. Okay. All right. So now let's look at designing the divider here at this bottom image. And when I look at images or signs or graphics, my mind looks at it and breaks it down into primitive shapes. What shapes were used to create the overall design? And then how can I use those shapes in LightBurn to recreate that design? So if I go back over here, and the way I found these, in fact, if I do scrollwork interior corner SVG, and I didn't do that doesn't matter. Let's do those were the corners. Let's do a divider. All right, and I'm going to, and here you can buy these. You can go online, find some of them, copy them, trace them in LightBurn, and get a decent result. And you can use some of the tools in LightBurn to clean them up and get them pretty good looking, but they're not perfect. The only way you can get them perfect is if you design them from scratch. But if I took this image right here and just copied it, copied the image, go back over here to LightBurn, paste it into LightBurn. Now trace it out and say, okay, put that in a fill mode. So, okay, well, there's some, but if you look, there's all these irregularities that are from the results of the tracing. That's not a perfect circle. That's not a perfect circle. And you can clean all these up using the tools that I showed you this week using the optimize. Where is it at? In fact, let's ungroup all that. Select that, tools, optimize selected shapes. You can clean that up and make it look better, but it's still not going to be exactly perfect. Let's zoom in on that. Tools, edit, optimize selected shapes. And usually I'll go about halfway on all of it. But it's still not a perfect circle. You got rid of a lot of the anomalies where all the jagged stuff's at, but it's not uniform. And I want my stuff to be perfect. But when I look at these, I'm like, okay, well, what was used to create those? How did you what shapes? So let's go over here, and I wished I could find the one that I used as a template, but we're not going to worry about it. We're not going to worry about it. When I looked at, and well, I'll bring it in LightBurn instead of using this. Okay. Sorry, I was reading your comments. All right. Open file, recent projects. This was the not dead yet. All right. Cutting back over. In fact, whenever I saved it, I had some random pieces up here that were pieces that I traced, and I said, okay, but these were ones I didn't like. Get rid of that. We'll come back here to this one. I'm going to grab just this divider. And we're going to talk about that. All right, so when I look at this shape, I see 1, 2, 3 lines. That's all I see in there is 3 lines. 3 lines that have got a couple of balls on. And those 3 lines then duplicated and mirrored, whatever, to create the overall image. But check this out. This is 1 line. In fact, let me get a toolpath. That's a line, and it's all by itself. Nothing's duplicated on that one. But then this piece here is the same 2 lines duplicated and then rotated one opposite each other, making the X. And then from the center out, that's another line that's just duplicated and flipped over here. So instead of having to draw this out and draw all of these shapes from this circle all the way to this circle, and all I've got to create is this one time, create this one time, and this one time. I've only got to create 3 lines. So I'm going to grab my pencil tool. I didn't want to do that. I want to go to a black layer. Hold my shift button to draw a straight line and draw out a perfectly straight line. Done. Now I'm going to draw a circle. I'm going to come up here to the top and draw out a perfect circle, holding Control and Shift, draw it out from there. And that's a 2 millimeter circle. I'll say okay, Control D, duplicate that, and just drag it down here to the bottom where it snaps in place. Now that was a 2 millimeter circle. So I want this line to be offset, not measurement, offset by 0.5. No, I will say 0.25. Yeah. And by doing 0.25 offset, that's 0.25 on either side of that line. So it's a 0.5 millimeter total on 2 millimeter balls. Delete the original object, say okay. And now I can hold my shift button. Actually, you know what? I need to select that, holding shift, group those. Now hold shift and grab that line and weld it together. And there's one piece. You're like, okay, well, that's a perfect sphere and those up there are not. Well, this is a new trick that I learned since designing this. Using that optimized selected shapes that I talked about in this week's video, watch what it does. So I select this piece and come up here to say edit, optimize selected shapes. And I'm going to say smooth source shapes. And I don't like that you can't zoom in here. So I'm going to cancel out. I'm going to zoom in first there and now go back tools, optimize selected shapes, smooth outer or smooth source shapes. And say okay. And there we go. So I like that even better than what I did up here. Because up here, even though I tried to make it as uniform as possible, it's not as uniform as this is. That's actually a better result than what I had to begin with. So now I'll come back to my pencil tool and I'm going to draw out another straight line. And I'm not sure if that's the right length or not, but I'm going to select that and I'm going to hold shift and less than and rotate it counterclockwise and see, just checking my length and see how that looks. And I think I want it a little bit longer. So I'm going to come back over here. And what is it now? It is, we're going to 10 millimeters. All right. And hold shift, rotate it. It was shift. I didn't want to do shift. I want to do, yeah, there we go. That was control. Now there's shift. That might be too long. And the problem with just shrinking this down is it just, if you were to hold it, if it was already positioned, you start shrinking it down, it can get a little funky, but we'll try that. We'll do that. All right, because it's a straight line, it works. If it was already, because it's only a single line, you can stretch that and it keeps its symmetry. If you don't have your length set first and then decide you want it longer, like right now, I'm going to shrink that down a little bit and then do my offset and delete the original, say okay. And now I'll say, okay, well, I don't like that. I want it to be longer. I'll hold my shift button and stretch it out. It's going to blow up your offset. Everything gets wider. Everything changes. So get your length where you want it and then do your offsets. And I'm only going to make this one 0.125, make it skinnier. But before I do that, I'm going to put my balls on there. That was 2 millimeters. I'm going to do 1 millimeter on this one. Holding my shift button, get my bullseye, hold my shift and control. And I'm going to draw out a 1 millimeter ball, or tell it to be a 1 millimeter. There we go. Come down here, do the same thing, hold shift and control. Got to do the circle. Get your bullseye, shift control. Tell it to be 1 millimeter. Now select that line, do an offset 0.125. Okay. Select both balls, holding shift button, group those, holding shift, select the line and weld it. Edit, optimize selected shapes, turn on smooth source shapes, and we're going to stretch that out. And say okay. Control D, duplicate it. Now without holding any buttons, just hit the greater than and that'll rotate it 45 degrees. Hold shift, select that one, weld those two together. Hold shift, select the first one and weld that one together. Now I've got a center point there, the center cross piece. And let's see here. All right, good, good, good. I don't see any questions. We're good. So now I'm going to come back here, grab my pencil tool, and I'm going to come in here and I'm looking for right there where I get a cross. You can't see it real good. In fact, why am I showing Rhonda? Let's turn Rhonda off. There we go. Sorry. In fact, if I put that in line mode, we'll get rid of that sub layer. Put this in line mode so you can see it better. Line. Okay. Now I come in here and I get my crosshair, my cursor with the crosshairs. That tells me I'm right dead in the center. And I'm going to make sure I got my pencil tool. Got that. Holding shift button, draw out a straight. Did it wrong. Undo, cancel, undo. Holding shift, draw out a straight line as long as I want it to be. Stop my pencil tool, done. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do another. In fact, when I did this original one, I did like a 2 millimeter circle up here, and then I used my rotate tool and duplicated it 4 times so that they were perfectly, all 4 of those were in the exact same position in a quadrant or whatever. I didn't do that on this design, and I'm not going to worry about it too much. But I'm going to come here, get on my line, and hold shift and control and draw out from that center point on the line and tell it to be 2 millimeters. And actually, it looks like it's close to the outside edge of that. In fact, if I come up here to the top and grab me down a tool path and bring it down here and put it right there, I can see that that is actually a little bit higher than that. And if I come down here to there, and then, and this is the ADD, the one of it, oh, you didn't do that originally, but how can you get that exactly where that one was at? Well, use the tool guides, the tool paths. I draw one and put it there to that top line, grab another one up here and drag it down to that top line. And now I can use my ruler and measure the distance between there and there. And it's about 1/4 millimeter, not much. So then if I wanted to, I can come over here and grab a line here and snap it to the edge of that one. And now I will take this, grab the edge of that circle, snap it to that line, go over here, grab my movement tools, change that to 1/4 millimeter and say, okay. And now select just that circle and move it out 1/4 millimeter. And that would be being super crazy anal about where everything's positioned. If you didn't do it right, and you know, you can always go back, and there's always another way. There's always more than one way. So, but now I've got that one positioned there. I'm going to select that, say Control D, duplicate it. And now just want to arrow it down to what looks good and duplicate that one. And I'm going to put a little space between that one. Then I'll say Control D, hold my shift button, select that and put it at the end. And then I'm going to reduce it from 2 millimeters to 1 millimeter. And I need to put it at the end again. In fact, here's another example of anchor points. There's so many ways you can use these tools and so many places that they apply. If I go back right now and just do undo and show you what I did. There I had a 2 millimeter circle, and then I wanted to make it 1 millimeter, and my anchor point's in the center. So when I told it to go 1 millimeter, it drew it down from the center and pulled it away from the outside line. Well, I'd already positioned it to the outside, and that's where I wanted it to stay. Well, if I'd thought about that before I reduced it, go back, undo, say, okay, I got that selected. Well, I want to anchor that circle to that right here, to the center right. And now when I reduce it, it kept its position where it should be and reduced it to a 1 millimeter circle. So don't forget about your anchor points when you're resizing and move stuff. If you're going to use the rotate tool, rotate it from an anchor point. If you're going to resize it and you want to keep it fixed in a certain area in the design, use that anchor point to hold it in place. So there we got that. Now, with that said and done, let's do an offset of the line, delete the original, and we're going to do this one 0.5, no, 0.25. Say okay. Now that though, because I did the offset, now that's taking that out beyond there. So I will take my circle and I will hold my shift button and, oh, that's too far. Well, actually that'll work. That centered it up. And now I'll grab all of the circles, group those together, hold the shift button. And actually, you know what? Before I do that, I'm going to do these tapers. I'm going to do these tapers. So what I need to do is, there's a bunch of different ways you can do this. Nodes. All right. I'm thinking. All right. I'm going to first draw a toolpath over here, put it right there in the center of that circle. That's at the top dead center of that circle. And I'm going to put a node, edit, and put a node right here. Actually, just over here in the middle anywhere. Insert and insert. Now I'm going to put a node right here where those intersect with that toolpath. And I'm going to draw that node up to there. And I'm going to draw this node down to here. But by putting those two nodes in there inside the circle, it anchors that so this doesn't move. That distance stays the same. And out here, I'm going to if I draw a toolpath from the top to there in the middle. And here's where without doing math, I'm just going to draw a square, the size I want it to be, and then I'm going to take that square and tell it to be in the middle of that toolpath. And now I can just grab this, go to node editing, go to node editing. There we go. And I will just drag this node, that intersection, and drag this node to that intersection. And now get rid of that and get rid of the toolpath. So that gives me a little taper there. Now, that is a straight angular taper. I don't want that. I want to give it some curvature. So now I'll go back into node editing. And in between, since this node and these, I know they're perfectly centered up in the center of that circle, and I know I did those there, I can just hit the letter M for middle, and it's going to put a node, and these will be symmetrical, M and M. And now I'm going to set my movement. How far apart are those? Let's take a measurement. We'll go from here to here. Right now they're a millimeter apart. So let's do our movement. Change the move. Oh, it's already at 1/4 of a millimeter. So that works. So go back to there. Go back to node editing. And now I'll hover over that node and I'm going to hit the letter S for smooth. Come back down here. S for smooth. Select that one and I'm going to arrow up one time. And I'm going to select this one and arrow down one time. And now that puts some curvature in that. So, okay. Now that I'm starting to like that, I'll just select my circles. They're already grouped. And select this piece and weld those together. And if I wanted to do the same thing where I get rid of these hard corners and select that, go back up here to edit, optimize selected shapes, smooth source shapes, and you can start to give it some there and say, okay. Grab that, Control D, duplicate it, flip it. Well, I just group them. I did the wrong thing. Undo. There we go. Now flip it. I hit the wrong flip button is what I did. There we go. Now grab right there and get it right there. Snap in the center. Weld those. Select that, holding the shift button, and weld those. Put that in the fill mode. And now you just got a really crisp, super clean divider that is going to engrave perfectly with precision, and it won't have any wonkiness. In fact, I like that one better than my original design. So I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to save that to, do I have one for dividers? Yeah, I do, dividers. So I've got 4 dividers. So as I create a new divider, I've already got a divider folder. So I select that, import it, and this will be number 5 and say, okay. So now I've got 5 different dividers that I've created. So whenever you're bored and sitting around and got nothing specific to do, you might create a divider or a border or a corner and save it to a folder because you don't have anything pushing at the time. And when you need those things, you can go, this would be a good place to put something like that. You've already got them. You've got a library you can go pull them from. All right, let's look at the comments. And I should have been putting the markers in where I was at. Looking for question marks. Tom's all the way up to number 9. All right. Tom's getting a lot out of this tonight. Let's see here. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. You getting your money's worth. Oh, wow, he's all the way up to 11 now. Now up to 12. He's getting his money's worth tonight. But Dave says, wow, 100. Okay, good. And you guys up to 9. All right. And Steve's all the way up to 12. Awesome. All right. So those are the 2 things I wanted to show you. Using basic shapes, circles and squares, rotating the squares and make them, into diamond shapes. And if you're not back to thinking of squares and diamonds, if we draw out a perfect square and you use your shape properties, no, not shape properties. We're just going to hold the shift button and rotate it one time. And then now holding the control button, shrink that in. Now that shrinks in both sides. Somebody was asking me the difference about when you're using shift and control to do different things. Well, holding control, now you're able to shrink that square in and made a perfect diamond. And now you could use, instead of using circles, you could use diamonds. Now holding control button, I'll shrink that on down and then done diamonds up here instead of circles and got an entirely different look. with your dividers. So that's what I say. You can take a basic concept and use circles one time, diamonds or squares, and get 3 or 4 different looks out of one basic design. Now, Mike says he's just figured out how to broadcast to his TV and he's on the big screen. Hey, and that just throw up. I've been on TV a lot. Been in lots of commercials and different things, different reasons to be on TV shows. But I've been in one movie that actually made it to the big screen. And to see yourself, to see your face, see a close-up shot of yourself on a big screen, then you realize just how fat you really are. So I'm not a big fan of big screens. Not a big fan of big screens. Okay. So that takes care of the corners and dividers. We still got 80 of you still here. Now I want to briefly discuss a couple of emails that came in that I haven't had time. What was the movie? The movie was Blood Done Sign My Name with Ricky Schroeder. Blood Done Sign My Name. It was on the big screens for a little bit. Wasn't a big hit because of the subject matter, I'm sure. But I got an email about some requests on these lanterns. And on hobowithwood.com, there is a lantern template that doesn't have any artwork in it whatsoever. It's just the template, a basic template so you don't have to go in and create all the math and designs to do all this. And it already fits. It's already there. It's just a template. All you got to do is add your artwork to these panels to create whatever type of lantern you want it to be. And Santa has asked me about a butterfly lantern. And he sent me a file to look at. And I'm going to show you, and not to pick, and I don't know if this is a file that he's designed or something he's got. So I'm not going to, not picking on, but I'm going to show you all the downfalls and things to avoid when you're doing something like this. Jim says he just had to take his shoes off to count what he's learned because he's up to 14 and he's out of digits. So now he's counting toes. All right, so let's grab this, get rid of this, delete. And we'll get rid of this, delete. And now I'm going to bring in, I'm going to show you the screen in a minute. I know you're not seeing it. I'm going to import from downloads this. All right. Now I will show you what I was asked to look at. And let's put everything in line mode, not fill, line. And I'm guessing that initially this would have been the size of one panel. So this would need to be rotated like that. Now I'm looking at it and I'm trying to even make out what it is. It was kind of hard to make it out because there's so much going on. And when you're cutting out these lanterns, you don't want a whole lot of tiny itty bitty pieces. And the less you've got that can be broken, the better off you are, because these things are a little bit fragile anyway. And this has got a whole lot of cuts in it, a whole lot of little pieces. And there's some alignment issues, misalignment issues, like this is not where it needs to be. So that would need to be ungrouped till we can get down to just these pieces. Still grouped too much. Ungroup. Grab those. And that would need to be repositioned to probably about there. That's a little bit out of whack. And I'm not picking on anybody, and I don't know, because I don't know where Santa got this from, if it was something he designed or just copied and traced. But there's a bunch of different issues. Then you got here where it comes so close to each other, that's not even going to be cut out. It's not going to be a really good image. And what I look for when I'm doing these is, like here, this is actually just three. This panel is 3 images. I've got the Jeep facade, the front end, the word Jeep, and then the mud dripping from the top. And that's it. The next one is a little bit more elaborate going on. It's still got dripping mud, but then that's just a sun with the silhouette of the seagulls and a beach silhouette with the Jeep. I try to keep it as simple as possible. So if you're going to get the Jeep template, what I recommend doing is this. If you don't have the ability to draw out and create your own artwork from scratch, then you can try and use some of the AI out there to generate a silhouette SVG. But you want to keep it as simple as possible and do silhouettes only if you can. And I'm going to do that right now in real time using Google's AI to create, because this was, go back over here. These have got 6 panels in them. And when I do them, I'll have either 6 unique panels, or the one I did with the deer and the winter scene, I actually took a scene from a child's coloring book. So it starts and wraps all the way around. And it's one continuous scene. But using a elementary child's coloring book, it's large silhouette pieces, not a whole lot of detail, and they work great for doing the lanterns. But we're going to go do it with AI. We're going to go try and do it with Jack's. Well, I was just using the name of Santa. I wasn't going to use your actual name, but that's just Jack's. And Jack says, I designed it, tear it up. Well, it's not a bad design, but it's probably not a good design for the lantern. And we're getting ready to go look at something that is. So if I come back over here and we're going to switch and we're going to go to Google, not Goggle, Google, AI. AIGoogle.com is the Gemini. And let's see, I want to get to chat with Gemini. All right. Chat with Gemini. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to enter a prompt in the Gemini AI. And I'm going to ask it to create a silhouette SVG. No, I'm going to create we're going to tell it a simple and we'll even go even further, give it as much direction as possible. A simple black and white, and that's almost oxymoron, because silhouette should be black and white, but a black and white silhouette SVG of butterflies and daisies. Is daisies IES or you? Yeah, IES. I think. No, it didn't like that. There we go. And so create a simple black and white silhouette SVG, not of, using butterflies and daisies. And now it's thinking. Oh, it's giving me the code. I don't want code. Don't show me code. Oh, you come on now. I did this before going live. This is the joys of going live. I tested this and it worked. Now it's going to be a butthead. Create silhouette spell it right. Silhouette SVG using butterflies and daisies. Create an image of come on, fingers. Create an image of create an image of, and I used this, I did use Gemini and it worked. Create an image of butterfly, create an image of create a silhouette SVG using butterflies and flowers. I'm not sure why it's doing this to me now. I did this and I had a really great result. And that's the only thing. No, it's not the only thing. There's a lot of things I don't like about artificial intelligence because it really ain't that intelligent. You have to tell it exactly using the right words and verbiage in order to get the results that you're looking for. Try graphic instead of image. I used image before, but we'll try it. Create a graphic using butterflies and flowers. Okay, that gave me a switch, but that gave me the result I'm not looking for. So let's try create a black or create a silhouette, because that silhouette is the key. You because all of this, all that detail, it's kind of like the image that he had to begin with. You don't want all these details. You want it to be just a silhouette. Create a silhouette of butterflies and flowers. Okay, that's better. All right. In fact, I'm going to take this one. I'm going to open that up and I'm going to right click, copy image, and now I'm going to go back into LightBurn. Delete this, paste that image. And there's a lot of this that I don't need. First, I'm going to trace the image and say, okay. That looks more like a moth than it does a butterfly. That looks good. That's acceptable. We're going to ungroup all of this. And first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of a bunch of this down here. I don't need all that garbage. And if I draw a rectangle, it's about there. And actually, I should have left that grouped a minute ago. So we're going to grab all that back, group that back together. So A, subtract B, and get rid of all that garbage down now. So I got a few flowers down here. Now I'm going to take that and ungroup it. That's trash. This little guy I don't want, and I don't want that moth looking thing. And now I'm going to select this right here, that little weird piece, and come up here to edit, select shape smaller than selected, and delete. And that'll get rid of all those little bitty pieces. I actually don't even need that piece. Get rid of that. And I'm going to import my lantern files. No, not that one. Not photos. Files and the lantern template. So there's the lantern template that's available on Hobo with Wood. Now, if you grab one of these, you bring it down here. That's the size you need it to fill. So I can grab this butterfly, bring him over here, position him kind of where I want him to be. And so I want these two flowers. I don't need that little piece right there. Hold Control, deselect it, bring these flowers down here, maybe blow them up a little bit. And if you wanted different flowers, you might just ask it to create some silhouettes of daisies or individual flowers, or you can actually even create your own. Come in here and we'll put a circle down here. I'll come over here and I'm going to put a circle right here. Now I'm going to go into node editing. Got to convert it to a shape first, or a path. Convert to a path, go to node editing, and I'm going to just insert a node right here. Insert, and I'm just going to drag it out. I'm going to get rid of this guy, delete, and we'll just actually move that to about there. It's okay. Use my circle array. Weld those. Well, can't weld them. Why is it letting me do that? Those, because they're not grouped. That's why. All right. I didn't group my results. Deselect that, group those together, hold my shift button, select that, weld it together. And now I'm going to take that path, I'm going to duplicate it. Now I'm going to take my flower down here, A, subtract B. I didn't want to do that. Undo. When you're not sure which one's going to give you the results, A, subtract B, and then do Boolean and take a look. Nope, don't want that one. I want that one. Say okay. So now that would be, you could draw some different flowers, but then add that butterfly there. And if you wanted to put this guy over here, grab him and bring him down here. But keeping it as simple as possible, rotate it down to where you can anchor that in, maybe draw him up a little bit bigger. Now, when you want to weld these in there, this piece, in fact, I've got, I need to turn that off. Turn that off for a second. That's done. Delete that. I've got two of them on there. Delete. Turn that back on. There we go. So this is a solid square piece, and I want to subtract that butterfly out of it. There you go. Now it's welded in. Do the same thing. Select it, then hold your shift and subtract it. That welds that butterfly in. Let's put these flowers in there. What have I got? A, subtract B. There we go. And so that would be one panel of a butterfly with some flowers. And you could make different flowers, create different images. But I use a lot of children's coloring books. Search online and look for and even like preteen or elementary, coloring books, because they're simple. You want simple designs to then go in there and cut those out and be able to create those panels. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't know why it wasn't cooperating, because I used create, image, silhouette, SVG. I used all those commands and it created the perfect result for me, because I kept tweaking it until I got exactly what I was looking for. And I don't use artificial intelligence enough to know what those, because there's certain words that it recognizes better than others. But I try to do most of my stuff using basic shapes instead of copying and tracing and all that. But the downside to the image you sent me is it had too much going on, Santa. There was too many details, and that makes it fragile and it makes it hard to work with. And you really want to use just the silhouettes, just the outlines of the images whenever you're welding them into those panels of the lantern. Now, there was another question that came into email, and I'm going to go over it. We're at 140. We're over 90 minutes, but we still got 78 of you here. This one was a question from somebody that wanted to know about a Christmas ornament and welding names. And they sent me an email with an image, and I'll pull that up. We'll clear that, because I'm pretty sure they're here in the stream. Close that, open that, open. Jeff Benedict. You still here, Jeff? I think I seen you in here. Jeff sent me an email asking about, says his mom asked him about making these ornaments for Christmas for the 10 great grandkids, and he was having a hard time figuring out how to easily get their name to carve out. Yep, still here. Great. Well, I'm going to show you that, and this, I guess, is something that his mom had maybe seen online, and it was available to purchase, and they're selling them for $5 a piece. They were $17. Now they're $5, and it looks like might be made out of MDF. Don't really know what it's made from. But there's a couple of things wrong with this design that I don't like, and I wouldn't pay you $2 for it, for the design, let alone a finished piece of any kind. But I'm going to show you how simple this is. It's extremely simple. In fact, let me show you what he's looking at. This was what he's asking about. He's wondering, how do you get the name in here? Well, first thing I see when I look at this design, it's no longer a circle. Because what they did was they created the circle, and then they divided it in half and moved the bottom half and the top half up and put the name in there. And that elongated that circle. So now it's kind of not even really oval shaped. It's more of a race car shape or a racetrack shape. It's not symmetrical. Well, I guess it is symmetrical, but it's not round. So I don't like that. I don't like that at all. And his question was, though, how do you get that name to weld in there? Well, this is actually really, really, really easy to do. Go back over to LightBurn. I'm going to draw out a perfect circle holding the shift key. And I'm going to make it a 4.5 inch circle. I think that's a good size for a Christmas ornament. 4.5 inches. And they had it round. And my overall is going to be 4.5. So I'm going to come in here and do an offset inward of about 1/4 inch. Didn't want to delete the original. Turn that off. Offset. Don't delete. Okay. So that's about 1/4 inch round. Then I need to put my little hanger up there. So draw out a rectangle. Hold my shift button. Selector tool. Hold my shift button. Put it in the center. And we're going to move it up just a little bit. Weld that. Draw out a circle. Come right here in the center. I'm going to do an offset inward. Select the first one and hold the outer piece, weld that. So there's a hanger. They did theirs with a step on it. Instead of having it perfectly square, I decided to go that way. But that's perfectly centered. And now if you wanted to put the name in there, what they done is they took and cut it in half. So they had a rectangle that they said, so it was probably 2.5 tall, 2.5 inches rather. And we're going to align that to the bottom of that. And then use that as a cut tool. So we're going to select all of that, group all that together. And I need to duplicate it first. Say Control D, duplicate. A, subtract B. And then Control D, duplicate that. And there's always more than one way to do it. This is just how they got there a minute ago. And then bring that up. Now, so they had two halves like that, and they dropped it down and put the name in there, and that's why it looks a little bit elongated instead of round. Well, I wouldn't do that. Now, when you're doing welding, you got issues with anything that has an inner piece, E's, O's, A's. You know, if you're not careful and they cut away and fall out, then you get these half names, half fallouts. Well, you can do this. How many times did I tell you? There's only one way to do things in LightBurn. That's the Hobo way, which is totally bogus. You can do this a million different ways. A million ways. This is the way I would approach it. And this is kind of something similar to the way I do the crosses with the letters all welded together. I want to keep that perfect circle. So I'm going to start changing my horizontal spacing up here until and turn on welded. Welded is turned on for me. Right here, click that, turn that on. And then I'm going to come over here to my horizontal space, H space, and I'm going to start lowering my H spacing until the letters get welded together. And then I'm going to draw that out to where it's now overlapping the ends. So that is now perfectly lined up. And then if I grab that circle and tell it, actually I need to ungroup this, grab this, hold my shift button and tell it to go to the center. So now it's centered up. I'm going to duplicate this, say Control D, duplicate it, and I'm going to put that duplication on a toolpath and turn it off for right now. So now I've got all that done. I'm going to hold my shift button and draw it down to where they're just overlapping. You want a good, strong connection here. If you kept shrinking it down to where you just had that little bit of a Y overlap, that's going to be super, super, super fragile and not connected over here. But you want it to look good, but not, that'd be all right. So now you can say A, subtract B, and that welds that in there. But that looks like that might be a little bit difficult to read. That's all right. Turn that toolpath back on. Actually, I didn't, because I changed it after I made my toolpath. What I'm going to do is undo, undo, undo there. Now that I've resized that, I'm going to duplicate it again, Control D, duplicate it. I'm going to put that one on a red toolpath. Turn on my blue toolpath, get rid of that blue one because it's the wrong size. Turn off the red one. Now A, subtract B. That's welded in. Turn on my toolpath. And now I'm only going to select that toolpath. And I'm going to uncheck welded up here. Now I can see all the letters. So this is how I do those crosses. If you watched any of the cross videos, you've seen this. If you haven't, this is how I do all the letters in the crosses. And if you're going to do, and it's a lot of work on the crosses, a lot of work, especially when you're doing, Amazing Grace or Lord's Prayer, and you've got 200 or 300 or individual lines to create. But by doing individual names, this is really slick and really easy to do. So I did a duplicate of Jeffrey before I welded it in place. And now I've turned on that duplicate and turned off welded so I can see the individual letters. So now I'm just going to come back over here with my pencil tool. And I'm going to come right here and start. And I'm going to put it on a different layer so you can really see it. Let's do, we'll do the hot pink. Oh, no, that's the toolpath. Undo that. Turn it back. Go back here. Select the hot pink line. Now go to pencil tool. And I'm going to come right here and I'm going to start drawing out there till I get to that corner. And then I'm going to draw a straight line to that corner. Done. Now I'm going to grab the selector, the node editing tool and come right here to this line and just drag it. Come on. Come on, cursor. There we go. And just drag it down to where I get the curve about where I want it to look good. About there and there. That looks pretty good. And now if I want the J to overlap the E, I'm only going to draw that one line. I'm going to come here to that point, draw a straight line from corner to corner, go into node editing, grab that line. Come on, grab that. It's easier if you grab the line first. Grab the line, go to node editing, and now I just got to bend that line right there. Done. Now I want the E to overlap the F. So I'm going to go back to my pencil tool, draw a straight line from that point to that point. Selector tool, select the line, go into node editing, bend it up. And you see how that doesn't quite, right? I took it there, it works, but there it's a little bit large. We'll just grab this angle right here, this tangent, and push it in and drag it out to wherever you got to do to where it starts to overlap. That's more uniform. Now that's a little bit wonky. All right, we'll drag this down and around. That looks good. Same thing over here. The F on top of the F, 2 points up here. Pencil tool there, straight line. This F on top of the R. E on top of the Y. So I drew that straight line. Now go down here, select that straight line, go into node editing, and bend that to where I want it. and then the Y. Now I'm going to turn off that toolpath. Now you can see, well, I got that one line messed up. I missed a line down there. You can see any screw ups you got. Turn that back on. I missed that one there. And I missed that one. All right, so now you can see each individual letter. Now everything on the black path would actually be a cut line, and everything on that hot pink would be an engraved line. So now when you cut this out, come on, selector tool. That's what you're going to see. And that's just one way to do that, Jeff. I like that. Instead of doing some of the folks, well, like the version they had. Go back here. They drew two lines, and I'll show you that real quick. Because some folks may prefer to do it that way than to do this result. I like that overlapping and seeing those like that. But if you go back, cancel that, and we do just a simple 4.5 circle. And then you did a line and a line. Center those up, group them, center those up. So now those are a perfect circle, and that's all spaced apart. And then you just did Jeff with 0 horizontal spacing. So now they're spaced out. You've got gaps in between each one of them. Select, select, centered up. Now Jeff's in the center. Make that a little bit bigger. Then if you were to, oh, I moved it. Didn't want to move it. Undo. Offset it 1/4 inch. So now we make Jeff smaller. Put it in the center of that one. And that's centered, but it really doesn't look, and maybe because those lines are there right now. And now I'm going to do a offset of those lines outward of 0.12. Yeah, that looks about right. And say okay. And I should have said delete the originals, and I didn't. So now we'll delete them. We'll make Jeff a little bit bigger, where it's now overlapping the lines, and those are grouped. So hold that and weld it. And now Jeff's in there. And now you can say A, which is the inner circle. You're not grouped. They're ungrouped. So you got A, just the inner circle. A, subtract that will give you that. And that is more like what they did. And that does not look like a $5 ornament to me. I like that a lot better. And it's personal preference. So if it's your Etsy page that's on there in my, that I'm not slamming you. I just like the other style better. It's my personal preference. So there you go, Jeff. That was 2 different ways of putting those in there. Where most people get lost, it was that very last step. And I'll go back and show you. Where most people get lost is they've got this and these are grouped. And they're like, well, how do I got the Jeff and the lines together, but now if I take that and weld it together, well, that's not right. So undo that. And so you say, grab that and I'm going to subtract it because that's what I did to make it work. And that don't work. And so people, they fumble and stumble and argue and cuss and throw stuff at the screen because they had those two outer shapes grouped, and that won't give you the result you're looking for. Think of that inner circle as a solid disc of paper, wood, whatever. And now you need to subtract that name out of that singular inner circle, not the whole thing, just out of the middle piece. So you go back and you got to make sure that that is ungrouped and you're only subtracting it from that inner piece. So the inner piece only, and subtract it, and you get the result you're looking for. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. All right, so now I want to go back up here and look and see if anybody had any questions. Oh, I see people saying hey to Dimitri. Dimitri popped in, I guess. I'm running dry, folks. 2 hours. We're going to wrap this up because we've covered the corner pieces, the dividers, and the 2 emails. Like I said, I apologize to anybody who reached out to me in the past 2 days and I didn't get back to you yesterday. I took yesterday off. Oh. Hello, Dimitri. Glad you was able to make an appearance. Let's see here. Questions. Any questions? Now, Jeff says, yes, that looks great. I was just overthinking the outside edge of the name being cut out, but I really need to do it the right way. Yeah. And there is no right way. There's no wrong way. It's what do you like? What appeals to you? What is your personal preference? And even if you have a singular preference of what you want it to look like, there's probably 12 different ways to get there. And it's just a matter of making sure your brain wraps around what you're working with. Like I said, where most of the people get lost is honestly, they're trying to subtract it from the groups instead of individual pieces, and it blows up on them. They go, okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hanging out with me tonight. If you are not subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button. It's right there. Subscribe. Going the wrong way. There it is. If you've liked this, if you learned a lot, like it, share it, send it out there. Hobowithwood.com is where I've got a lot of designs out there that are already, and when you see what the detail that I go to, like with those dividers and stuff, it's so easy to go on and copy and trace, but you don't always get a great result with trace. If you haven't watched the video this week on that tool, I'm going to go back over here to edit your select shape, the edit, optimize selected shapes. Optimize selected shapes. I did a video on that this week, and that is an awesome tool when you're trying to clean up your traces, or if you want to manipulate designs like you've seen me to do tonight. That is a really, really valuable tool. Go back and watch that video if you haven't seen it. Subscribe to the channel. Jump over to hobowithwood.com. And let's see, banners. Here we go. If you are not a patron, please consider becoming a patron on patreon.com. That's right there, patreon.com/hobowithwood. Bronze supporters get all of my digital files for 60% off. Silver gets 80% off, and gold gets everything for free. Now, if you're new to the channel, I had a few people back a while back that signed up as gold patrons, signed up for $20 a month, went in and downloaded over 500 some odd dollars worth of files, and then canceled their membership. Stole from me. So I had to throttle the amount of downloads that golds can do at a given time. You still get all the files for free, but I've got it throttled to $40 a month. But if there are, and if you download $40 worth of files in a month, it'll take you a month to, if you're using, and I encourage you to take my files and make as many of them as you can. If you get the lantern file and you create, and I've got a couple on there. I've got the Jeep lantern on there, and I've got a winter lantern on there. I encourage you to make my files, as many of them as you can, and sell every one of them. Become a millionaire. And then when you do, then say, hey, you know what? That Hobo guy helped me out. I'm going to send him a little something, something. But I don't license my stuff. I don't prevent or ask you not. The only thing I ask is that you're not giving my files away. Don't share my files with folks, and don't give them away in different groups or forums. Recommend the website. Recommend them to become a patron. For $20 a month, you are going to have so much value, because I'm constantly doing new products, new folders, or new files, new designs. And I even give away, like this one. This one's simple, but it's fun, and I gave that away to everybody. That went to all the patrons, regardless of what tier level. And I'll do that, at least once a month or so. That's not even on the website. That's just something I did and said, hey, this will be fun. I'll give it to the patrons. But if you download $40 worth of files and I drop a new file and you're like, oh man, I just downloaded and now I'm at my limit. If you hit me up through Patreon and say, hey, Hobo, I just downloaded that, but I really want that file you dropped, I'll send it to you. I just had to throttle it to keep people from stealing from me, because those jerks are out there. So let's see here. That was for Dimitri. All right. Good. All right. Looking for any questions before I get out of here. All right. Good night to everybody. Yep. Is there a way you can save some of your library as a file to sell? Is there a way you can save some of your library as file to sell, for we can use some of your library? Oh, my libraries. Oh, I have to think about that. There is a way I can do that. Yeah. And I did that once before. But I'll be honest with you. That might be something that I would probably be more inclined to do for my patrons. That might be something that'd be kind of neat, is maybe monthly or so, just say, you know what, just like I give away these files. I give that away to everybody. Bronze, silver, and gold, they all got it. So that's actually a good idea. Is that would be kind of a bonus thing to do, to give to all of the patrons, gold, silver, and bronze. This week everybody gets all of my corner library art. And the next week I might drop all my earring art. That's a good idea. But I think I'm going to reserve that just for my patrons, because I'm be honest with all of you guys. If it weren't for my patrons, I would not be here right now. My patrons are what make this channel happen. This is my job. This is my bread and butter. This is how I make my living, designing and selling files. But on all of my designs, if you go to hobowithwood.com and you see a design that you like, you can probably come to this channel and search that, and you will find a video that shows you how to create that file from scratch. And you can do it yourself without buying it. But once you realize how much work goes into it, you said, heck with that. I'll spend the $4 or $5, or some of them are a little bit more, but there's a lot of work that goes into them. So yeah. Question from Santa. What backing do you have on the Jeep? Okay. This is not what I would recommend. This is nothing but the gift wrapping paper, the gift tissue paper that I glued to actually, I didn't even glue it. It's a lie. I took the panels, each individual panel. No, I didn't. Yeah, I did. Yeah. I took all 6 panels, laid them out on a piece of board. And then I took lacquer, spray lacquer, and spray painted the entire back of them with lacquer, clear lacquer, and then stretched out a big, large piece of the wrapping tissue paper and laid it down on top of all 6 pieces, smoothed it out, stretched it out. And then once it was in place, I took that spray lacquer and sprayed 2 or 3 coats on the tissue paper to give it a little bit of strength. It's not just paper that absorbed that lacquer, but it's still fragile. There are better alternatives. Somebody, I haven't tried this yet. Somebody suggested those real cheap dollar fold up, or you can get the dollar cutting boards at Dollar Tree, the real thin plastic that they roll it up. You can throw it but that you can cut it with scissors or even cut it with a laser, but be careful that it's not poisonous or full of any polys that will put out bad gases, but you can cut that with scissors. And it's also translucent, that the light will get through it. But this is just gift wrapping paper. Yeah, parchment paper would work great too. The wax paper or parchment paper, and the parchment wax paper would be as good as this with less work, but still be fragile. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Yep, nope, yep, nope, yep, nope, yep, nope. Is that something I was doing just now? Maybe. I don't know. Frosted glass vinyl. Yeah. And I don't have it here. No, that's the supplies. Instead of and I guess it's probably what you're talking about, frosted glass vinyl. They make a anti-glare plastic that you use in picture frames, and that can be cut with scissors as well, and that would work ideally. You can look at all these ideas in here: colored cellophane, all kinds of different ideas. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that'll work, Santa. Bunch of stuff. All right, guys. Again, like, share, and subscribe. Hobo with Wood. In fact, we see banners. There it is. Put that on there. There's the website, hobowithwood.com. Go over there and check that out. If you're not already a patron, and actually, I would encourage you to do this. Go over there, go to the website, and look at all those different files. Because there's probably pushing $600 worth of stuff on there now, and files that are averaging anywhere from $3 to $5. So there's a ton of files on there, and you may find that, yeah, there's a lot of stuff on here I like, and it'd be a whole lot better off to become a patron. Go ahead and bite the bullet. Sign up for $20 a month and get you as many of those free files you want, knowing you can only do 40 a month. But then you're going to save so much money because you're going to be downloading. If you spend 20 and you're downloading 40 a month, and there's $600 worth of stuff that you can download, maybe you only want $300 worth of it. But if you can download 40 a month and $300, that's what's that? 6 weeks that you spend $20. So you $120 and you get $300 worth of stuff. You're getting everything for half price still, even if you just do it for 6 months. But you'll find that there's the gold sponsorship on Patreon is worth every penny to you, and it's greatly appreciated by me. All right. And like Chicago says, good night, everybody, and go gold. So good night, all, one and all. I thank you. You guys have a good evening. We're 2 hours and 15 minutes. It's 45 minutes longer than I wanted to go, but we've had a good time. You guys have a good night. I'm hitting end stream now, and there's always this delay on when it ends. I never know when